Thank you everyone for joining today's webinar on media management. We'll be looking at the media module, which is what we refer to as the combination of modules between the photo and photo albums tools within ClubExpress. We'll also be taking a brief look towards the end at what we can do with videos on ClubExpress, primarily embedding them on pages like the homepage and custom pages. We'll be taking a look at that functionality as well. Before we get started into the actual content, we always like to go over a little bit of housekeeping for the webinar. All of the attendee microphones are muted. So if you have any questions, please enter them in our Q&A section. So you can find that at the bottom of the page in your Zoom controls. There's a little Q&A, so you can put questions there. I've got Ryan, one of my favorite ClubExpress employees, managing the Q&A. So if you have any questions throughout, please put them there. He'll try to get them answered. And then at the end, any important questions we'll go over again just to make sure that they get visibility. The recording of today's webinar will be on our YouTube channel, so you can always find that there. And additionally, back to the Q&A topic, we do like to keep the topics of the questions on the topic of the webinar. So if you have any questions about general ClubExpress things, please go ahead and send those over to support. You can contact support@clubexpress.com. All right. So if you want to find the recording of today's webinar, you'll find it on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. You can find it by searching clubexpress.com. That's clubexpress.com. That dot is spelled out on YouTube. You can also find us on other social media platforms like LinkedIn and Twitter or X and Facebook and Instagram. So we have a lot of information, a lot of content is shared on those platforms as well. We do have a few upcoming webinars. We've got a few webinars coming up in April, things like covering our membership renewal options. We've got a few new options for membership renewal that came out in version 69. We've also got a couple webinars in April and March covering the e-learning. So we'll be going over courses and quizzes, and then we'll be doing students and seats. And then Ryan, our support person today, will actually be leading another one of our village webinars towards the end of April. So we'll have a hard date out for that soon here. Lastly, for those of you who like the ClubExpress service or have any comments about it, we love to hear reviews from our customers. So if you have, thoughts or improvements, you can go and kind of leave that for us in on clubexpress.com/reviews. So you can just, let us know how we're doing there. All right, so let's get into the actual content of today's webinar. We're going to be going over media management. The first section of the webinar we'll be looking at photos and photo albums. We'll be looking at the photo admin function. So that's where we can go and store all of the individual photos and manage them and edit them there. We'll also take a look at the way to kind of administer photo albums. So photo albums is a separate module within ClubExpress, and we'll be taking a look at photo albums made by admins. We'll also be taking a look at photo albums made by members. And then we'll take a look at the front end of the photo albums module. We've got a bit of a new, slightly updated look and feel on the photo albums module for members. Once we're done covering photos and photo albums, we'll take a look at video embedding. So we'll go over kind of the custom page widget and how to find that embed code and put it on a page. We're talking about media today. So, media is not just photos. It also covers things like video and audio. The things that we'll talk about for video embedding do actually apply to things like podcasts as well. So if you wanted to embed audio content, if you have a source for that, I'll mention that again during the video embedding portion towards the end. All right, so let's get into the actual content. First, we're going to take a look at the photo manager. So I'm going to head over to our website. I'm going to take a minute just to swap my screen share here. You should now be seeing the IAFA, our Illinois Association of Financial Analysts. This is a test website we use for a lot of our webinars. When we're on this website, I'm currently logged in as Martin Smith. And Martin Smith is an administrator. So we're going to head over to the control panel to take a look at some of our media functions. So we've been saying the term media module a lot, especially since we announced version 69. We're trying to kind of rebrand the combo of both the photos and photo albums tools that are found in our website tab of the control panel. Under admin functions, we're going to find photos. So that's not a module in and of itself. It's actually a function for admins. There is no member side of the photos tool. But what there is a member side of, and this is why we call it a website module instead of an admin function, is photo albums. Photo albums has its own front end and back end for us to manage. But these two different tools for ClubExpress users are kind of in tandem. So photo albums is the organization of photos that we store on the website, and the photos admin function is where we actually go to store them. It's kind of the repository for all the photos on the website. So let's take a look first at our photos tool. If we go into this admin function, we're going to land on this page. The first thing you'll notice, those of you who've been with ClubExpress for a while, is we have a new way of looking at photos. Instead of the old table that we used to take a look at, we now have a grid view. All the same information is there, and you'll see underneath each picture are things like the file name, the title, all that information, when it was added. So all the information is still there. If you preferred the old way of looking at a list of photos in a table, you do still have the option to click switch to list view right here. And that will switch back to that table view just as you remember it. The one change that has been made to both the table view and the grid view is now we have the additional bit of information is in album. So in the table view, we have this little check mark. You can see most of these pictures are in a photo album, but we can see if we scroll down to right here, this photo is currently not in a photo album. So it was either added directly to this photo page, or it was added to an album and later removed. Keep in mind, if you remove a photo from an album, it does still stay on the website over here in this Photos Manager page. Once we're on the Photo Manager page and we've looked at how we can see them, there's a few things we can do with this tool. We can come over here to the buttons across the top. We've got the option to manage tags. I believe we have an upcoming webinar down the road later this year on tags again. We already have existing tutorials on tags. Tags are a cross-module kind of way to categorize content on your website. So that applies not only to photos, but things like events and forums and blogs and news articles. Everything can be tagged so that when people search on the website, they'll find it regardless of what module it's in. We're not going to focus in on tags today. What I do want to focus on is these other two options right here. We've got an option to add multiple photos or add one photo. Functionally, these work very similarly. If we hit add one photo, it's just going to pop open a little box where we can select a file from our computer so we can upload a single image. Do note there is a maximum file size of 20 megabytes. So if a photo is larger than that, you might need to open it up in, Microsoft Paint or Photoshop or whatever image editing software you might have available to you, and maybe shrink the image down just a little bit. Because if you're working with, professionally shot, 8K images, those are going to be bigger than the 20 megabyte size of file limit. So you might need to shrink this down, but 20 megabytes is usually large enough for just about any average photo. Definitely any photo you take from a smartphone these days should fit within that size limit. We also get the options of what information we can share about this picture. So we can do things like add a title. For adding a title for admins, that is optional. We'll discuss later about how we can make it mandatory for users to plug in title, but we'll be going over that in just a few minutes. You don't have to fill in a title. If you leave it blank, then the title will just be the file name of whatever file you upload. We can also set a caption for a picture. So if we have a picture from a company picnic, we can maybe point out, who is in the picture or what's being done. If you are a car organization or a biking club, you can point out like the models of your cars or bikes, something like that. Caption is just some fun information. Again, not mandatory, but you can fill in additional information about what's in the picture. Tags, will reference that again right here. We can tag a photo so that it gets marked as a certain category. So, if I was a car club, I could tag it with Ford and someone could search and they could see all of the, blogs about Fords, all of the pictures of Fords. We could do that kind of thing. We also get the option for an author of the photo. That just means, who took it. It could also mean who is authoring the photo album. Author is just a term for, who is responsible for this photo. We also get the option to plug in the date the photo was taken. All of these extra kind of information bits, especially for administrators, are optional. You can just upload a photo and save, and you don't have to fill in any of the additional information if you don't want to. Lastly, before we add a photo, is the option to allow for a download of a high-res version. If we uncheck this, then the download option won't appear and people can just, either right-click and save a photo, or they can just view the photo on the website, but there won't be a full high res download. If you leave this checked, and we'll see this option later because I will leave this checked for most of our photos. If you leave this checked when people are looking at a photo or looking at a photo album, there will be a little button kind of off to the right hand side when they're looking at it that allows them to download the full resolution option. When they're looking at it on the website, oftentimes the website will shrink the image to make sure that it fits better. So if you have a really large photo that does fit in with the 20 megabyte limit here, you can allow for people to download the full size one instead of just the one that is, kind of shown on the website. The other option over here, add multiple photos, is almost exactly the same. The main difference is we can select multiple files. So when we select photos here, it's going to open up our computer. We can choose more than one file and upload them all at the same time. Keep in mind when you do that, you'll notice things like the title and the caption option are not taken here. So we get slightly less options for what we can upload when we're doing multiple files. But if you need to upload, 10 or 20 pictures, it might be a lot faster to do it all at once as opposed to doing it with just the one at a time option. Once we've got a photo uploaded, it'll just show up in this photo kind of grid here. Keep in mind, if you're wanting to upload photos to an album, there is a way to upload it directly to an album. Um, Putting a photo in the photo library does not inherently add it to an album. There is a way to add photos directly from your computer to an album that we'll be going over shortly. This will just put it in the photo library for your website. Once it's uploaded, we can do a number of things with it. We can just look at the information about it here, but across to the right-hand side, we've got the standard ClubExpress kind of grid of icons. The icons that we see here are the eyeball option, where we can click on the little eyeball and it'll pop up a preview of that picture. Again, we can, kind of easily get a preview of a picture if we switch to the grid view option, and that will give us a little thumbnail of the picture. Clicking on the thumbnail is the same thing as clicking on the eyeball as well. So we can just click on the picture itself to get the preview, or we can click on this eyeball down here. The other icons we get, and they are the same no matter whether we're in the list view or the grid view, the icons will still show in the same order with the same function. The second one is this pencil option. We can come over here and we can either replace it with a different photo. So if we need to, put an updated photo, if it's a photo of, our annual gathering and we want to replace last year's with this year's, we could replace the entire picture with a different file. It would keep all of the information about the picture, just overwrite the actual image. We can change things like the title, we can change the caption, we can change the tags. All that information that we added, we can actually edit after the fact. We also have the option here to copy image URL. So if we need to send a link to a direct image from our website to someone, we can copy the URL just by clicking on this option, and we'll get a few different options for what we can do with the URL for it. We will get 3 optional sizes. We'll get a thumbnail size, which is kind of what we see right here as a thumbnail, is a smaller kind of shrunk down version of the image. We get screen size, which is the version of the picture we'll see when we click on it. So it's going to be maybe slightly shrunken to fit the website. And then the third option we get here is original, which means it'll give it the full resolution, no kind of shrinking or anything like that. That's the actual original file that you're sharing with this link here. You can use this link a number of ways. You can use the link in, in a page editing to link to it. You can send it in an email. For the most part, when you're putting an image on the website or linking to an image, there is also an option just to build a direct link to this photo instead if you wanted to. The next option over is the option to delete. Keep in mind when you're deleting a photo that if it is in an album, that album will then be missing that photo. So if we delete it here, it will delete it from every album that it shows up in. A lot of people have asked, is there a way to kind of show whether or not we can see what album it is in or how many albums it's in? At the moment, that's something we're kind of considering, but at the moment, this just shows whether or not it is in an album. It doesn't show what album it's in at the moment. We will be taking a look at the photo albums in a few minutes where we can see how to search, what photos are in an album. We can do that in the photo album manager. But if we delete a photo, it will be removed from every album it's in. Also, I like to point out right here, if you use photos when you're editing a custom page instead of web graphics, if you delete a photo from here, it will disappear off that page as well and can occasionally show up as a broken link. So you want to be careful when you're deleting a photo that it's A, not being used in an album, and B, not being used on a web page. Because if you remove it here, then it can possibly mess up web pages, possibly mess up photo albums. And then the last icon we get is our image editor. And we'll see the image editor in a few places. If we click on the image editor right here, it's going to open up the actual image in a little box here. Now, ClubExpress has given a fairly rudimentary image editor just for simple things like brightening or rotating an image if it was uploaded in the wrong orientation. You know, we are not an image editing software company, so it's pretty basic here. If you're looking for advanced image editing, you can usually find that in things like Microsoft Paint or Photoshop. There's a lot of free image editing software out there. This one is just to give you very basic controls. So don't expect the world from this photo editor, but we do get basic things like all of our editing options are across the top up here. So we can do things like rotate the image if we need to. We can rotate it around, turn it upside down if we like. We've got the option to crop the image. So if we say, you know, hey, this is just a little tall, we want it a bit more square, we can click this crop tool, and then we can crop this a number of ways. We can either just click and drag to crop, and it will, you know, give you a little highlighted selection where we can, you know, remove bits of the photo. We can also manually create a size. So if we want it to be perfectly square, I say I want a 400 by 400 block of this photo. So now I've got a 400 by 400 square, and then I can actually drag that little block around if I need to, you know, adjust the spacing of that photo. Once I've got it selected, our edit option has this little either check mark or X. If I hit the X, it will discard those changes. Or if I hit the check mark, it will save those changes. And now I have a perfectly square photo. I also have a brightness option where I can come in here and I can adjust the brightness. Keep in mind, this is what we would call a destructive edit. So it's going to, you know, as I brighten the picture, it's actually altering the picture itself. And if I save it and then choose to darken it, it's going to lose detail as I brighten and darken. So you want to, you know, I would always say use a light hand with this. If you need to, you know, brighten the image, I would say just do it by, you know, one or two kind of clicks. Uh, Over brightening can sometimes distort images just a little bit. And the last option we have here is our scale option. So if you need a picture to be slightly larger or slightly bigger, you can do that using the scale option here. And we can either scale up using the plus and minus to just adjust the scale. And you can see the numbers over here change as I scale it up. You'll also notice as I scale it up, it loses detail. So this isn't like the, you know, CSI Miami scale that where we see to enhance photos. That's not something that we're currently capable of doing. So if you wanted to scale up a picture, this is just going to zoom it in. But the more you scale it above its original resolution, it will lose detail. So it's going to become a little bit more pixelated. And you'll see as I zoom this in, the picture gets, you know, blurrier and blurrier, and we can start to see pixels and things like that. So the scaling is, you don't want to increase a picture by 3 or 4 times, maybe just a smidge. You won't get pixelated or distorted if you shrink. Usually scaling a picture down um, is fine because you're going to be, you know, reducing the size of the photo, so there's nothing to kind of blow out. But as you do reduce the size, obviously it's harder to see because it's smaller. Once we've made our edits, we have a couple options here. We've got the option to save and close, which will apply our edits to the base photo. So keep in mind, just as I was mentioning before, if we edit a photo and save it, it will edit that photo in every photo album it's in, and it'll also edit the photo in all the pages that that photo might have been used in. If we save as new, instead of overwriting the existing one, it will create a new photo in our library with these edits applied, and it will preserve the original. The new photo won't be in any photo libraries, and it won't be in any pages, or it won't be in any photo albums, sorry. And it won't be in any pages. You would have to then apply it to those pages, but it would save a new edited version. So I can say, you know, save new edited version here, and we can come in here and say, we can search for this photo. So now we can see there are two photos. We've searched for, you know, a file that starts with the name Alfred. We've got our original and we've got our edited. If we look at the full file name in the table view, we'll see one of them says Alfred Reagan's Tub Mill. The other one says Alfred Reagan's Tub Mill with parentheses edited. So there's our secondary edit that we just made. All right, so those are most of the options of what we can do with the photo manager page. Let's now go take a look at albums. So if I back out of the photo manager and I go to my control panel again, now we can go take a look at the website module photo albums. If we click into this one here, we will see a similar page, but instead of presenting us with individual photos, this is going to show us the albums that those photos are being used in. So we can search by album name, we can search by categories. We can control our categories up here by clicking on photo album categories. Um, Keep in mind the categories don't contain photos themselves. The categories are just groupings of photo albums. So maybe we have a category for our events and a category for our, you know, different car collections, something like that, whatever your organization is using photo albums for. Our categories show up right here. So we can have, you know, a number of different categories, and we can also see how many albums are in each of those categories. We can add additional categories just by clicking on categories here. We can also control the display sequence of these categories. So if we want certain categories to show up first when people are looking at the photo albums, we can click on those here. We can adjust, say, you know, I want my events photo album to show up first. And I can save that. And now events is going to be at the top of the list when people come to look at photo albums. We also have our photo album options. So this is going to be general options that are applied to all of our photo albums. If we click on photo album options, we get a couple of important controls here. Not a lot of controls, but they are very important. The first control we get on this page is whether or not to allow member photo albums. If we set this to no, then all photo albums are created by administrators and we would put them on the website as admins. If we say allow member photo albums yes, then every member will have access in their member profile to go and create their own photo albums where they can store photos. If they do store photos, we can choose what we want to do with them. So we can choose to say, do we want to include that member's name as attached to the photo album? So when people are looking at that photo album, they can see whose it is. If we say yes, then everyone can see who actually made that photo album. If we say no, then the photo album will be relatively anonymous unless they include information, you know, in say the captions or the photo titles, you know, as to who it belongs to. And then the last option we get here is display member photo albums in the photo album list. So do we want people who are looking at our club photo albums to see our members' photo albums as well? This is one place where it's, you know, it's kind of up to your own discretion. Keep in mind, if we say yes, top or bottom here, where, you know, where do we want the photo albums to show up in the list? That would mean members are able to upload their own images to the website without admin oversight, and people are able to see them. So if you're at all worried about your members uploading something inappropriate, or if you have like a standard of quality for your photos, then you might not want to allow members to upload their photo albums, or maybe you may not want to allow them to be shown on the website. So you might choose no there. But if you know, trust all of your members to upload, you know, good quality, appropriate photos, then you can choose either top or bottom here to display those photos. If we choose top, then when people go visit the photo album page as a member to look at all the website's photo albums, the member photo albums will be given priority and will be shown at the top of the list. If we choose bottom, then the member photo albums will be given bottom priority. And when you're looking at the photo albums, you would see the club photo albums first, and then the member photo albums shown after that. Next, we have our photo size, which is going to be the default maximum size that a photo will show up on the website. The default used to be 450. Now, with, you know, modern technology, that's relatively small. Our new default is 1024. That's kind of a standard resolution for looking at photos. I sometimes like to scale this up if I have like professional photographers taking pictures for our website. Sometimes the scale can go up to 1400, and I'll set it that high so that we can display the images, you know, as high as we possibly can. So this max screen size option maxes out at 1400. This is not the maximum size of photos that can be uploaded. This is just the maximum size that the website will show photos that are uploaded. So you can upload images that are, you know, 2 or 3,000, you know, even 4,000 pixels wide. That's an option to you. This is just going to be how big the photo is shown when people look at it. And then the last thing on this page, we get the photo options. When members are uploading photos to a photo album, we can require one or both of these options. We can require a title. I personally like to set this to yes. That way, you know, those of us who have, you know, Android or iPhones, when we take a picture, you know, normally the phone will just assign a random, you know, IMG underscore, you know, 1554. That doesn't really tell us what's in the picture and can be hard to understand. Requiring a title will make people fill in a title for that picture, and it is much more useful and easier for us to kind of understand what is in that picture, easier to sort and, you know, and keep track of images that are uploaded to your website. So requiring a title can help you with your organization. Requiring an author will require them to, say who made this photo. If we say yes here, then they would have to upload that. I usually don't require an author. I usually leave that one set to no. They still have the option to put an author if they want to, but you can require it if you would like. So those are our photo album options. And then we get the option to either add a photo album or come in here and manage our existing photo albums. If we add a photo album, it's going to ask us information like the album name. So we could say, our 2024, annual conference. You can do menu text, which is so if you were to put the actual photo album itself on your website menu, what would it be called on your menu? So just like when we're editing one of our modules, we can control both the module name and the menu text. The same is true for an album since we can connect an album to our menu. We can also choose what category this is going to belong to. So there's all the different categories of photos. We could say, since this is for our conference, we might put it in a event category. We also get the option for availability. So we have two options here. We have any website visitor, meaning the public is able to see this photo album. So if the photo album is, say, listed on our website menu and it's made available to the public, we can also control whether or not we want this specific album available to the public. So maybe most albums are available to the public and that's fine, but this specific album is members only, which means if I'm not logged in as a member, then it is not going to show up unless I am logged into the website. We also have the option for visible or not. If we uncheck this, then not even members will be able to see it. Only the creator or admins will be able to see this photo album. So if a member is creating a photo album and they can choose to make it not visible, maybe they're just doing it for their own purposes to store some photos, and they can do that on the website. If they choose to make it visible, then whatever availability they have here, those people will be able to see that photo album. We also get a quick link name and a description, so we can describe the album, and we can also quick link to the album. So if we have a quick link here, say, 2024 conference, we could put that in there. And then whenever someone visits the website, if you have your, myclub.com, they could put in myclub.com/2024 conference, and that would take them right to that photo album. So that quick link will function as an option to say, your website / and then this quick link, and it will take them right to that album. Once we have an album made, it'll show up on the list down here. Now we can start to add photos to that album. We can do that by clicking on the little pencil icon for that album. So we'll go through all of these little icons here in just a second, but the most important one is easily going to be this pencil icon. When we click on the pencil, it's going to take us to our album page. We've already got some images in this album, but if we wanted to add more, we can use these buttons to the right-hand side of our image list. Going from top to bottom, the first option we get is select photos. You'll also notice that there is an option to add photos, and the difference there might be kind of obscure at first. Select photos is going to let us look at photos already in our photo library, including photos from other albums. So if we click select photos, it's going to pop up, and we can use this tool to search by title or search by tags, or just hit show without searching, and we can go and find other images on our website. So here, for example, there's that image. So we've got the original Alfred's and then the edited Alfred's. I'm going to add this Alfred Reagan's tub mill edited to this photo album, and I'll hit select. So again, choosing the select option is looking at photos that are already in our website and adding them to this album. The add option, to add one photo or add multiple photos, if we choose add one, this is that same bit of information that we saw earlier. If we see all of these kind of options where we're going to fill in the information, it'll ask for the same bit of information. Note that because we require a title, it now has this little red dot here. That means it is going to require the title in order for us to continue. If we don't fill in a title and try to save, it's going to say, hey, you haven't filled in a title yet. And this will allow us to add a photo to our album directly from our computer. It'll add it both to the album, and it'll also add it to the photo storage that we were looking at the beginning. The add multiple photos option is going to let us select multiple photos. It'll also ask us for a title for each photo. So when I select multiple photos, it's going to show us each photo into this little pop-up here, we can select multiple photos, and then we can give each photo a title, and then we can tag them and fill in the rest of our information. It'll, just like before, just like adding one photo, it'll add it to the album, and it will add it to the photo storage in the admin functions. We can also do things like control the display sequence. So let's say we want this mill cabin to show up first instead of these other images. We can say display sequence, and we'll see the list of all the photos in our album, and we can move them around. Let's say we want the tub mill to show up first, and now it's at the top. And when people look at this photo album, this is the order the pictures will display in. So top to bottom, that is the order that they will show up in. We can choose to configure the album as well. We can come in here and we can change things like the album name. This is the same options we saw when we were adding the album. And we can also assign the album what we call a long description, which is going to be something that people will see when they're viewing the album. Again, we'll be taking a look at the album from the members view in a few minutes. We'll see what we can do with it. So this is where we can come in and we can use some font controls to give it a, gussied up look for people to see when they're looking at the photo album itself. So that's how we add a photo album, and adding a photo album this way is from the admin point of view. So all the photo albums we add here, these are going to be admin photo albums that we added to the website ourselves. I do want to take a brief minute to go and hop over to the member control panel, or the member profile. So I'm going to come up here to the top right corner. Instead of accessing the photo albums through the control panel, we can access them through our name up here in the top right, and we can click on profile. And when we're on our own member profile, if those member photo albums are turned on, you'll find those over here under your website functions. You'll see photo albums. And these are Martin Smith's direct photo albums. So we don't see the whole list of photo albums. These are just the member photo albums. And the rest of it from here is managed pretty much the same way. We can come in here and we can add a photo album. It'll ask for the same information. And we can also come in here and we can edit existing photo albums. We can see here's Martin Smith's collection of bike photos, and we get the same options for managing this photo album. We can select photos, add photos. The rest of the controls are pretty much the same. This is just categorized as a member photo album instead of one that was created by an administrator. So this is where members can keep tabs on their own photo albums. And they can also choose whether or not they want this to be visible. They can control that availability setting, whether they want, anyone can see my photo album or only members. So this is where members manage it, but the actual controls for managing it are relatively the same. For what we can do with a photo album once it's been added, we have the option to preview the photo album. So we can click this little view option right here. This is what the photo album pop-up looks like. So whenever you're visiting a photo album page, we'll take a look at the main page, but this is just a quick preview of what the album looks like on the website. You've got all your pictures along the bottom down here. You can scrub through all your different pictures by clicking the arrows on the left and right to navigate through the album. And then you get options over here on the right-hand side of what you can do. So we can pause the slideshow to keep it on one photo. We've got the option to full screen it. If we hit full screen, it's going to show us our entire screen. So it's going to fill the whole screen with just that photo. We've got the option to download. So remember when we checked for that image option? So if we back out for just a second and go into add a photo, we have this checkbox here that says allow download of high-res version. If we have that checked, and we come back to view this album, that's the button that enables. So this little download button right here, that will allow us to download the original file. So we're looking at, possibly a smaller, set to fit the screen option of the photo. This will download the full res version of that photo. And lastly, we've got the option to share this photo album. So those of you who want to share it on social media, you can share it directly to things like Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. You can share this photo album and it will share a link of this direct photo album on that social media platform. All right, so that's member photo albums, and that's the photo albums from the control panel. Let's hop back over to the control panel and let's take a look at what the photo album looks like from a member perspective. So if we want to look at the front end of this module from the control panel, we can always hit switch to view mode over here. And if we switch to view mode, now that we are in view mode because we've clicked that option, we'll now see the switch to edit mode version. If we're going to leave it in view mode and click over on photo albums, clicking this now will take us to the member facing side of it. So there's also been a bit of an update to the member facing side of the photo albums. Those of you who've been with us for a while probably remember the old view was a little bit, I would call it slightly outdated. So now we've got more of a streamlined kind of just grid view of all of our available photo albums. You can click on any available photo album to get into that same screen that we were just looking at a few minutes ago. So there's our view of our photo album. And we have all of those different controls along the right-hand side. We've got the options for how we want to view photo albums across the top here. So by default, it's going to show us our most recently updated albums. This is going to show us the albums that were just changed recently. So there's that cabin photo that I added to the 2015 conference. And that cabin photo is now showing up first because it's the most recently changed photo album. So that is going to be our newest album view. If we switch to show all, instead of showing our most recent, it's going to show us all of the photo albums organized in the order that we set. So we'll see there's our first category, events. I recently moved that to the top of the display sequence. And so now here's all of my event photo albums. We've got things like sponsors and conference. And then if we go down here to the bottom, we can see member photo pages and we'll see Bikes Martin Smith. So there's my Martin Smith photo album that we can browse through. So we can see Martin Smith's photo album is showing up on the website. It's currently at the bottom of the list of photo albums because in that photo albums configure page, we chose to show our member photo albums at the bottom. We could choose to have these show up first if we prefer to prioritize our member photos. We could have those show up at the top whenever someone is choosing to show all. So those are the two different views. You can choose to look at all photos or look at the most recently edited photo albums. And then another option we get when we're searching for photo albums is the option to filter or the option to search for specific photo albums. If we choose to filter, it pops open this little filter page where we can filter by category and say, just show me my event albums. And it'll show me all of my photo, all of the categories, all the photo albums in the category event. If we choose to not filter, say show all categories, we can close this filter. We can also search for albums. We can search by a number of things. We can search by image title. So if we're looking for a certain image, we can search that image title. And so we'll say Alfred. And so now it's going to show us all of the photo albums with the image Alfred. So there's all of our images that contain the term Alfred. We can also search by album title. And we can see all of our photo albums, we'll say bike. And we'll see there's a number of photo albums that contain the term bike. This one is our Martin Smith bike one. There's only one photo album with bike. It's Martin Smith. So that's the photo album that we are presented with. We can also search by the photographer. We can search by tag. We can search by a member's name if we want to search by Martin Smith. We would still get that same photo album. These are all of our photos with Martin Smith's pictures. So we have a number of options for filtering how we search for images and photos within our photo albums page. But for the most part, we can choose to see all of our photo albums, the newest albums, or we can filter down to certain search results.
Hey, Devin.
Yeah.
I just want to interrupt for a minute. We had a question earlier that I think would be good to show right now since we're in the photo album section.
Mhm.
Um, there was we were there was a question wondering where the captions show up, and I know they show up in the photo albums. Looks like none of the photo albums or photos that you've been looking at so far have captions. Can you add one really quick?
Yeah, let's add a caption. Let's go to Martin Smith's photo album and let's change a couple things. So let's change the caption of this first picture. So we'll say caption. This is a photo caption. And then let's also add the long description here. So we can say this is the long. And just to drive that home, let's make it nice and large. So now we've got a caption for our first photo and we've added a long description. We can save that. And if we go back to our photo album manager page, I will refresh this page so that those will pop up. So let's go find that photo album from Martin Smith. So down here under our member photo pages, I was just editing Martin Smith's photo album. So when we click on the photo album, there's our first caption. This is a photo caption. we'll see the caption shows up there. If we go to the other photos, there are not captions for that one. But when we get back to this photo, this is the photo caption. So that's where that caption shows up. We can also see more info. This is the long description. That's where the description of the photo actually shows up. So we can put in a long description here if we want to say, hey, this is, from my trip to Italy, here's the context of why I was there. So whatever photo album you're uploading, you can have context for the entire photo album and then the actual caption of picture to picture. Um, so the long description is for the entire album. The photo caption is for each individual photo. Thank you, Ryan.
No problem.
All right. So let's I think that's all I had for photo albums at this time. That's mostly all the controls that are there. I know there's a lot of questions usually about, what other modules does this interact with? Does a committee get a photo album or does a, interest get a photo album? The short answer on that is no. You can create custom pages for things like committees and interests and share the photo album on that custom page, but there is not a direct connect from just a photo album directly to, you know, a certain page. If we go back to our control panel now, let's look at a couple ways we can use photo albums. There is one place where photo albums does directly connect. It doesn't connect from photo albums to the module, but it does allow you to connect from a module to photo albums. And one of those places is events. There is an option in events when we're looking at any given event to turn on in our basic info. There's an option in basic info to enable what's called after the event. So if you hold an event and you're using the event module, and we have plenty of videos that outline how to create an event, so I'm not going to get too deep into that today, but there is an option at the bottom of an event's control panel after the event. In this section, we can connect to a photo album. So there's an option right here that says event photo album, and we'll see a list of all of our club photo albums. So we can create a photo album for this event and then connect it. So we can come in here and we'll say, bikes. We'll just choose that bikes album. And we can choose whether or not we want to show that album either immediately or after the event. So if we're having an event where we're taking pictures during it and we're going to upload that album later, we can connect it after the event. And once the event is over, a link to all the photos from that event will pop up. The other option is to choose immediately. So if you already have photos for an event and want to, display it immediately as soon as you create that event, you can choose the immediate option, and a link to this photo album will pop up on the event. So if I save that, now we've got the bike photo album connected to this event. If we go back to the event, we should see event album right there on the right-hand side with the rest of the buttons. So if we click on event album, it will take us to the Martin Smith photo album. So we can connect directly from an event to a photo album. So again, just in the admin options of an event, we can go to after the event and connect directly to a photo album, and then it'll show up on the actual event itself. People can go look at pictures for it. All right. So the last thing we're going to show during today's webinar, and then we'll do a bit of, covering some of the questions for this webinar. I'm going to show quickly what we can do with another piece of media, which is videos. One question we have a lot is, can we add videos to photo albums? At the moment, no. It's something that's been on our wish list for a long time. And, there's a lot that goes into mixing media types like photos and audio and video. But there is a way, and I'm going to preview it really quickly just to let you know there is a way to kind of manage that. When you're editing a custom page, we can go over to any given custom page. Every page has this option. I'm just going to add a new row to our page editor. If you want more content or context on how to use the page editor, we have a lot of tutorials, videos, and manuals on how to do this. But what I'm going to focus in on right now is just the actual cell editing options. So this is our page editor, and we can come in with a new row and choose a blank cell here. And we have a widget when you're editing a web page called media. So this media widget right here is in the list of widgets. And when you drag it in, it's going to ask for one of two options. You can either choose an external video or a local upload. Personally, I usually recommend against the local upload option because you're often going to run into a local upload limit size. So the local uploads have a limit of 300 megabytes, which if you're uploading a video, that's not a very long video. Videos take up a fairly large amount of size. So if it's anything more than, a 3 or 4 minute video, it's probably not going to fit in the local upload limit. But what we do have a way of getting around that is organizations like YouTube and Vimeo, they're much more accustomed to taking on large format videos. So you can go and grab any YouTube video, and having a YouTube channel is free. You can also do things like unlisting it. If you don't want it to show up on youtube.com, you can unlist it on YouTube and just have it be shared. You can grab any video. My example video is always going to be a how it's made video. So on YouTube, I've already got this how to make fire hoses pulled up. I'm just going to come grab and I'm going to choose the share option for this video. So just about any video that has embedding enabled, which is most of them, you'll have under the share option embed. When you choose the embed option, it's going to present you with this little snippet of code. You don't need to know what the code does. You don't need to know how to read it. All you need to know how to do is copy it and paste it over into the ClubExpress website. So we're back to the ClubExpress page editor. We're still in the cell tools for our media widget, and we'll just paste that in and hit apply changes. And now we've got the video loaded on our website, and it'll play just right here on the website. So that is just a little window over to a YouTube video. So you can share videos if you've got things like your board meetings or videos from an event, or if you have a Zoom meeting that you've recorded that you want to share, you can go put that up on YouTube or any other video hosting site. Almost all of them will have an option to be embedded there. I did just glance over and saw someone ask a question, can videos be embedded in an email? No, the reason for that has to do with spam. A lot of spam senders back in the day used to send a lot of videos. So now when you send out what we would call an iframe, so the very first thing you see here is iframe. If you send emails with that kind of content in them, they'll usually get marked as spam and not get delivered. So that's a bit of a problem. So we don't allow that just to avoid getting marked as spam that way. What you can do if you want to send a video to people is you can put a video on a web page, and then when you're sending an email, you can include a link to that web page. So essentially people can click on that link and go look at it on your web page, or you can include a link directly to that video. So instead of, you know, sharing the embed option, you could choose to share and just grab a link to it. So there's a link directly to that video. So there's a number of ways that you can send out an email and have people get access to that video, but actually embedding the video itself inside the email, currently not possible. All right. That's most of the content I had to share today, Ryan. I am sure there were tons and tons of questions. So, do you want to go? If you have more questions, those of you who are in the meeting, if you want to add any additional questions, please keep adding those to our Q&A, and we'll try to cover as many as possible. But I'll go ahead and ask Ryan, were there any that were particularly useful for us to cover?
Yeah, I think so. Well, so you spoke about the listed photo album details, so we kind of covered that. Um, we had Diana ask if the media tools are usable on mobile devices. I did answer that question in that you can probably upload photos from your mobile device, but it's not really recommended to use the tools, and it might be very difficult to use those tools on a mobile device, being
Yeah.
a cell phone or an iPad or a pad of any kind.
Yeah, and to speak to that very briefly, so all of the tools on the front end of the website, so the member profile and the homepage, custom pages, all the stuff that is accessible to non-admins, we try to make it very mobile friendly. The control panel and all of the admin tools, they're a little bit too complex for us to optimize for mobile. So the intent for all of the admin tools, so things like the photo editor, those are all intended to be used on a desktop or laptop computer, something with a mouse and keyboard, usually. So just there are certain tools you can access the control panel from a mobile phone, but there you might occasionally come across tools specifically like the photo editor. Um, those options might not work very well on a mobile device. You still can do things like upload photos from your phone, um, but there will be occasional tools, especially things like the page editor and stuff like that, very hard to use from a mobile device.
Okay, and then you may know a little bit more about this than I did. I answered as best as I could with the information we currently have. We had a lot of questions, or a couple of different questions about grid view for web graphics. If we're planning on doing that, and I said that it may be a plan for the future, but we don't know what's actually in the developer pipeline. But you may know a little bit more.
Yeah, so that is something that is, you've probably heard me reference the wish list a few times, and I know our former CEO, now retired, Dan Ehrman, has actually mentioned this in the past as well. So this is the photo album update with the new grid view and stuff like that. That is all stuff that was added to the wish list months and months ago. So we've just now gotten to actually implementing that. The implementation of the grid view to web graphics is also on the wish list, but it's not in the developer pipeline just at the moment. So it's something we would like to do, and it's in the cards, but we don't have a timeline for that just yet. So right now, the web graphics, that's the one place that we didn't talk about for media today because we usually cover that separately during our page controls option. So web graphics is another place to store images. Web graphics are not meant to be shared in things like albums and photo libraries. This is just the place to add individual graphics for use on web pages. So things like your home page and custom pages, those images are stored as web graphics, and the browser for it is, admittedly less intuitive than the photos now is. But we would like to update this one as well. Uh,
One question that just came in, which has been asked a couple of times, so we should probably go over it, is it possible to delete more than one photo at a time?
At the moment, no. There is not like a check off option to delete multiple photos. It is an individual case by case basis. Part of that is, code restrictions, and part of that is also protection to stop users from accidentally deleting photos. Because if we make it too easy to delete a group of photos all at once, we have found that a lot of times group deleting leads to a lot of accidental deletion and removal, and then it is a lot of work to get those things back, or sometimes is impossible to get those things back, and it can lead to more work. But at the moment, there's no limit, there's no way to delete those. Keep in mind, though, there is also not a limit to the number of photos you upload. So you're not going to run into a wall. You don't have to delete photos for space. For organization purposes, you may want to remove excess photos, but there's not a space limitation on photos. So if you're worried about, running out of room and deleting photos that reason, you're fine to leave photos there if you need to.
Um, Another question that came up is, can titles be included um, in photos when you do a multiple photo upload?
Yes. So I don't have photos on my computer to upload in a group way at the moment. I should have probably thought of that. Perhaps I'll upload a screenshot when I'm editing this video so you can see it in the recording. Um, but when you add multiple photos, each individual photo line here will have a little section for you to fill in a title for it. So if you add 10 photos, you'll see 10 lines pop up right here for you to add a title for each individual photo. The titles, so if you're doing the multiple ad as an admin, the title requirement won't show up. So if you choose not to add the titles, then it's not required, but there is the option to, yes. And if you're uploading them as a member and it's set to required, then the member would have to actually add a title for each photo.
Okay.
Um, I,
Looks like. Oh, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, I see a question that I can answer pretty quickly. So there's a question about how much of the photo albums and photo manager can be restricted to a subgroup. At the moment, photo albums and photo manager, neither of them are subgroup dependent. What that means is the photo albums and photo manager are applied to the whole website. There is no subgroup selection for photo albums. So it is just a website thing. There isn't a subgroup option. Subgroup admins can manage photo albums, but it's not specific to their subgroup.
We have a question from Mike. Mike, why do my photos appear soft when viewing them on the website? I imagine that has to do with the resolution they're being uploaded to as Mike. The default for photo albums, Devin, if you want to go to that photo album section, the default is 450 pixels, but we have a max screen photo size of 1400. So you could go to that photo albums options section and double check to see if that's not being uploaded at 450, because if it is, then all those images are going to be a little soft.
So yeah, I usually recommend, with modern monitors and screens and phones and stuff, 1400 is a relatively reasonable size, since most screens these days are going to be 1080p or higher. That's 1920 pixels wide, 1080 tall. 1400 is a reasonable size for a width of a photo to be displayed. Most people will have a monitor that can handle that.
Okay, we have a couple more questions are coming in. Cut me off when you need to, Devin. But
Yeah, we've got a couple more minutes here, and then we'll start to wrap up if the questions slow down. I'll go ahead and say we've had a question. Do you have any recommendations for example of photo policies for your website? Um, we don't have like a standard policy. Usually, when it comes to setting policies for your organization, we recommend that that's something you set up as like a board of directors, or if you have a legal team, if you're an organization large enough to have that, or even just someone on your team that is your legal representative for there's sort of kind of the obvious thing of maybe you set somewhere in your website, maybe in your terms. A lot of people might refer to, if we go to our control panel under the association or club tab, the tab in between money and communications, there is a joining agreement option that you can require members to sign a joining agreement as they join. So if you do allow for member photo albums, you could possibly add something to your joining agreement saying, hey, all photos you upload to the website do not contain, you know, insert offensive imagery here or something like that, so that you could, make sure that members are aware of what they're expected and not expected to upload. That would be an important part of it. There isn't a way for us to currently require an admin to sign off on member photo uploads. It's just a little too cumbersome to, for every image that gets uploaded, notify an administrator. So that is one of those things that if you're going to allow for member uploads of photos, you want to, be very clear with your members up front, hey, keep it above board, keep it, appropriate, and, make sure. And for a lot of, we have a lot of like organizations that are photography organizations, and they might have standards of, it has to be this certain quality, it has to fit this resolution, it has to be, there's a lot of different requirements you might put on your members about what photos are uploaded, and just using the tools at hand, things like the member joining agreement or anything like that to kind of help guide members as they are creating their own photo albums.
looks like we have one more question in the list. Can we allow anyone who attended an event to upload to a photo album? Example, if people attended an event and we want them to be able to add their own photos instead of having to send them to an admin. I'll let you answer that.
At the moment, no, there's not a way to open a photo album for people to add it publicly. There's a couple approaches you could take to that to maybe streamline it a little bit. You can actually add photos to the document library, and you can allow members to upload to a document library. So this could be something where you could create a folder in your document library called, uh, this, our annual conference, and people could upload their photos to that to that document library, and then an admin, all they would need to do is go grab the photos from that document library and toss them in the photo album. You could do that once a week or so or something like that, or just wait until they're all done and then upload them in a bunch. So that would be one approach to it. Another approach would be you could use the um, ad hoc forms option. So over here in the communications tab, you could create a form for uploading images, and that would also allow you to put in like a little stopgap. So you could put a message in that form that says, hey, make sure your photos meet this criteria. And then when you're creating an ad hoc form, you can allow for attachments. So you can make, 10 different attachments for that. So people can upload images of that event, and then those uploads are added to the website, and you could go, it would still require an admin to go and put their hands on it and move photos from that form or from that document folder to that album. There's not a way to open up the album to the public.
Okay, that looks like all the questions.
Yeah, and we're right at 12 o'clock, so that's good timing. We'll go ahead and wrap here. I want to thank everyone for coming. I know the photo management is something that's very important to a lot of our organizations, because obviously these are all, enthusiasts for the most part organizations. And so you're going to want to take pictures and share. So if you have questions about this, we'll have the recording up here in a couple days on our YouTube channel. And then you can also find other materials on our website. And if you are stuck on something, you can always contact support. That's support@clubexpress.com if you are experiencing any issues. I would definitely point you to our other video libraries and our support website. You can go by accessing the little question mark in your control panel or anywhere on your website to access all of our manuals here in the back end of the website. So there's a lot of tools for accessing support for your website. But thank you everyone for attending the webinar, and we'll see you next time.